Oh, it is well when I can see the rain. Oh, it is well when I can see the gain. It is well when troubles weigh me down. It is well. 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 When my soul, it is well. It is well. Oh, it is well. It is well. It is well. Oh, I know. It is well. Yes, it is. You are my strength in weakness, light in darkness, capable God. I trust in you. My God, my helper, all around me. I am a product of grace. It is well when I can see the rain. When I can see the rain. It is well when I can see the grace. Now I can see your face. It is well when troubles weigh me down. You let me feel. Oh, it is well. Oh, it is well. It is well. It is well. So much confidence. It is well. It is well. It is when some say there's a casting down, we will say there's a lifting up. We believe and say it is well. It is well. Sing it. When some say there's a casting down, there's a lifting up for you. We will say there's a lifting up. Just believe, just believe, and say it is well. It is well. I know it is well. It is well. I believe it is well. To the times I soar in His wings. It is well. It is well. I'm unstoppable. I'm going higher. I'm never gonna go down. For Jesus is on my side. Yes, it is well. In my home, it is well. In my life, it is well. It is well.
Hey, everybody, good evening. I'm so glad that you were able to take time out of your day to come check out Motivation Moments with Gregory Bloomfield. Me, of course, my name is Gregory Bloomfield, and I'm very delighted that you're here. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. This is your day. I hope you had a wonderful day with your kids, whether you were a biological father, stepfather, father-in-law, grandparent, or a spiritual father. Yeah, I hope you had a wonderful day. And we know that this weekend is also Juneteenth weekend. So we thank God for freedom. We thank God for the history that that day represents. We have an amazing show packed for you today. Good evening, Rosalind. God bless you. We have an amazing packed show. I'm really looking forward to our guest today. And for those who were with us last week was the first Sunday evening that we've transitioned from IG Live directly to YouTube and Facebook. So shout out to our YouTube audience, shout out to our Facebook audience. We thank you so much for joining and sticking with us. Hey, if you like this content, please don't forget, if you're on YouTube, to like, share, and subscribe click the button for notifications of when Motivation Moments with Gregory Bloomfield is on the air. And if you're on Facebook, please don't forget to follow us. We are on Facebook every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for those of us in the middle of the state, and to all other time zones accordingly. So 8 o'clock Sunday night Eastern Standard Time. The purpose of this show is to encourage you, to inspire you, and to motivate you for another week. And hopefully we continue to do that for you. This show needs your support, obviously. So I hope for people who stuck with me from the beginning, they've seen the growth. We were originally just on YouTube with a camera in my hand in my dining room or in my bedroom, and it's grown to another part of the house where I actually have a stand, and I'm actually no need to use my hands for the camera. And then we moved on and transitioned to StreamYard, which is a Facebook and YouTube platform. So we're growing in grace. We're growing slowly, but we're growing a great foundation. And if you would like to support this ministry and this work that I'm doing, please feel free to do so. Prayerfully decide. You can use Cash App, Bloomfield.ting. Anything, I don't put an amount. You can put $5, $10, $20, whatever you can do. That would be wonderful, and it supports the stuff that I do. Also, I wanted to let you know that some of you may saw the advertisement for it, but my latest book, The 522 Man, is here. You can order it, and we have an amazing deal that transcends just Father's Day, but we have a Father's Day bundle sale. Because I'm showing support and love to those who helped make this book a bestseller and hit number one on the Amazon new releases, I'm offering an amazing deal where you can get this paperback book and 2 ebooks. That's right, 2 ebooks for the price of $30. And that includes shipping for the paperback. So yeah, get this deal while supplies last, while the ebook supplies last, for $30. And if you want to order that, go specifically to my website. This is better than Amazon. Go to my website, which is sisterpamelapublishing.com. You'll see a product line that says 522 bundle. Click that, and you'll be able to purchase your bundle. Buy the book, the paper book, and share it with 2 other men that would love to know more about what a 522 man is about. And finally, before we get to our conversation today, I also wanted to let you know that working with my wonderful producer, Dr. Alonda Kusimo, we are working on an advertising program. So if you're interested in advertising your product, service, or if you're having an event at your church or in your community, and it has to be streamable, right? It has to be streamable. It cannot be your fish fry at your church with no cameras, and nobody wants to see people eating fish. Praise the Lord. So if you have an event that's streamable, you have a product or service that you would like to advertise, we're developing an advertising program. So please email me at bloomfieldting@gmail.com if you are interested in learning a little bit more about that advertising program. We haven't fully rolled it out, but we're going to be doing that soon. And also, we're developing a sponsorship program for individuals who are interested in sponsoring a guest or sponsoring our producer or sponsoring, technical stuff for this show as we grow this platform. If you're interested in contributing, please let me know as well, and I can have a conversation with you. With that being said, let's get right into our conversation. We don't have interviews. We have conversations here at Motivation Moments. And I am honored to have a good friend of mine, someone I've known for probably 20 years, ever since I've moved to New England. His name is Dr. Larry Warner. Dr. Larry Warner, as I said before, is a very good friend of mine. He's a champion for health equity. And as much as we know that this theme for the show is on manhood and fatherhood, did you know that June is Men's Health Month? So we're going to be talking about health today with men. Dr. Warner is a champion of health equity, and he has two jobs, y'all. He's the Chief Impact and Equity Officer at the United Way of Rhode Island. And he oversees grant-making, policy and advocacy work, research and data analytics, senior and disability services, and internal work and an advance for racial equity. He's passionate about health equity and racial equity, particularly with African American men. He also is an adjunct professor at Brown University. That's an Ivy League school here in Rhode Island. And he's an assistant professor of health services, policy and practice at Brown University School of Public Health. He was appointed recently, we congratulate him, as the appointed chair of the Governor's Council of Behavioral Health. So we celebrate this brother for being in favor with the government of the state of Rhode Island. He has a doctorate in public health and health equity, social justice from Johns Hopkins University, Bloomberg School of Public Health, and a master's in public health from Brown University. He is an Adventist Christian like I am. We actually served together at the same church at Lincoln. So I know that there's many people from Lincoln watching this show, whether live or archived. So shout out to the folks at Lincoln Seventh-day Adventist Church in Lincoln, Rhode Island. And he is a singer. He plays the saxophone just like me. And he is married to his wife of 16 years. And he has two sons, Samuel and Benjamin. I am delighted to have Dr. Warner as our second guest on the YouTube program, Motivation Moments with Gregory Bloomfield. Larry, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem,
Happy
man.
Father's Day to you.
Yeah, happy Father. First question. How was your Father's Day?
It was good. I spent some time celebrating Juneteenth in Providence at Roger Williams Park, and then we had a family cookout, my family, my brother-in-law's family. So covered a little bit of ground, a lot of food.
Yeah.
It was a good day.
Cool. I'm doing my Juneteenth tomorrow in Boston. I was with my kids this morning and this afternoon, and my son was like, "Hey, Dad, I got a gift for you for Father's Day." Yeah. Where is it? It's like, "Oh, I forgot it at my friend's house." So I'm like, "Thanks, son." So I'm actually going to get that gift this week, but you know what? It was just good to spend time with my kids and stuff like that. So yeah, I can say that I've had a good day as well. So, and happy Juneteenth to you and your family.
Happy Juneteenth.
Yes, sir. Yeah, let's get right into it, man. So you are a very smart man. You have a lot of knowledge in regards to health and particularly behavioral health and mental health, which is something that's needed. Tell me what made you so passionate about going into this industry, this field of study. What made you want to go into that realm?
Sure. First of all, I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to be in the roles that I'm in, and I take nothing for granted. Very blessed in these regards. I would say that where I am now and my passion for health equity and health promotion, physical health and mental health promotion, stems from observations that I've had over the years throughout different roles. After studying undergrad at Brown, I had a few different roles with the American Red Cross doing community education and emergency preparedness. I had the opportunity to serve the community as a firefighter for 15 years in the city of Providence. And through those different perspectives, saw how different communities were impacted differently by both illness and injury and man-made and natural disasters. And as much as it was rewarding and important work to be a first responder, and I hats off to everyone who's on the front lines of service to our community, there were some situations where I was inspired, motivated, driven to intervene further upstream, as a lot of public health folks would say, to not just be on the response side, but to be in a position to promote healthy and resilient communities. And so that led to additional studies and to opportunities that resulted from those additional studies, and have really been fortunate to help guide the allocation of resources through grant making, to be involved in policy conversations in the private sector and the public sector, all with the hope of helping to provide communities the opportunity to achieve their fullest and optimal potential for health.
So yeah, okay. So you saw the need. You felt that you definitely wanted to be a part of the change in our own communities, and that's what drove you from firefighter to fighter for health equity in our communities. You like that segue?
Yes,
That's
sir.
smooth. All right,
Very
cool.
smooth, very smooth.
Hey, all right. It's a sax player thing. But tell me something. So when we talk about equity, equity is something that is a common word that we see in many different capacities. Racial equity, equity for immigrants, equity for trans rights, LGBT, all that type of stuff. We see that word often in the community, but we don't hear a lot of health equity. So, how would you describe health equity? And let's put that in the context in layman's terms for someone who's a person of color. What does that look like? What does health equity really look like in Rhode Island, where you live, in New England, where we live, but from a national perspective and a local perspective?
Sure. So I'll start off by saying equity is a word or a term that both scares people in some context because they think it means that you're taking something away from someone in order to achieve equity. And it also gets confused or conflated with equality. And equity and equality, they're related, but they're not the same. They're definitely not to be used interchangeably. So equity, I would describe it as the condition where one's demographic characteristics, so your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your age, those or other characteristics are not able to predict your health outcomes, your health status, or to be associated with differences in health outcomes, whether it's physical health or mental health outcomes. If we see differences in outcomes by race, ethnicity, and so on, then we don't have health equity. So health equity is a goal, but it's also the journey. And equity requires that you prioritize communities and individuals who have been harmed by discriminatory policies and practices such as segregation and redlining and other policies that over time, at one point in time, were legal or condoned, that have created pockets of poverty or concentrated poverty in communities around the country and certainly in other parts of the world as well. But in the context of the US, the reason why we see concentrated poverty is by design.
Right.
It's where people of color were literally allowed to buy homes, or where banks would lend to them so that they could buy a home. And so there's a lot of wrongs that have happened in the past that we're seeing played out in real time, or still, the effects are still being realized today. And so equity requires that we have that in mind as we think about policies, as we think about investments, as we think about barriers to resources that promote health, whether it's healthy fruits and vegetables, or reducing access to tobacco and alcohol products, access to health institutions. All of those things are components of pursuing health equity. And then health equity would be achieved when, whether you're white or black or Hispanic, Latinx, you're older or younger in the context of certain conditions, you're a woman or a man, those characteristics, where you live geographically, is not a predictor of your health status.
And it's really interesting that you're saying that, because I've lived in Massachusetts, in New England, since 2000. And most of the time I've lived in Massachusetts, but then I had like a 5-year stint where I was in Rhode Island, and then I moved back to Massachusetts. And, one of the places that I've, it's like the back of my hand, is Boston, right? And you can clearly see especially and this is for those who live in Boston will know what I'm talking about. Everyone else in the country, you can relate to this. There's like a clear line of demarcation between, let's say, for example, Mattapan and Milton, right? One road can separate between the types of services that you can see and the type of grocery stores. It's like, just to put it in layman's terms, you won't see a Whole Foods in the hood, but you'll see like a what did I say, a bodega.
Mhm.
And if you want the organic fruits and vegetables, you got to go to the suburbs to get that.
Mhm.
And you won't necessarily get that in the hood or poorer areas. And the people in the poorer areas that are on a fixed income don't have access to transportation to get the fruits and vegetables that are organic. Like I'm blessed to have a car that I live in the suburbs and I can go to any Whole Foods I want to get organic fruits and vegetables, meats, all that type of stuff. But a lot of people who are poor, they don't have that. They basically can get what they get. Also, they're not having Popeyes and they're not even Popeyes, Crown Fried Chicken. That's what they got now.
Mhm.
Crown Fried Chicken is not in Newton. You know what I mean? It's not
Mhm.
in the affluent areas. It's
Mhm.
in the hood, and it's interesting you said that. It's by design.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
Is there a way that we can change that? Is that through legislation, policy, attracting, getting incentives to different companies to bring their products, the organic products, the good fruits and vegetables, the healthy snacks, all that stuff into the urban areas? Or what type of stuff are you seeing? What would you like to see? What type of stuff are you what's your things?
It's a great question, and there's a number of things that can be done to help advance health equity and to increase access to resources that help promote health. One certainly is location, and in some contexts, people say location is everything, or location, location, location. So location is so key when it comes to access to healthy fruits and vegetables, as well as if you look around in the same communities that we're talking about, where there are Crown Fried Chicken versus Popeyes versus Whole Foods. Look at where banks and financial institutions are located or are not located, and what communities are bankable, considered bankable or not. And so it's the whole array of access based on location. Then there's the cost factor and ensuring that healthy foods are affordable. And fortunately, there are a number of initiatives and benefits that help households be able to afford foods, both of course across the course of the year, but also during special times of year. And so the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is one of the key programs that helps to extend the reach of the dollar for households to be able to access healthy foods and vegetables. There's some initiatives where those SNAP dollars are multiplied depending on what vendor is participating or what products are purchased. And then in Rhode Island, there's an initiative called Food on the Move, which is basically it's a trailer with fruits and vegetables that goes to public housing developments and other areas that would benefit from having closer access to those resources for health. And so that's one example of how the location challenge or barrier can be addressed. There is also, you mentioned policy and incentives, and I think policy can be both a carrot and a stick. And so rewarding or incentivizing businesses to come into communities where they have not historically been, or to incentivize new businesses, community-led businesses, co-ops, or other business structures to be started in communities, so that not only is there a business in the community, but the community can benefit from it. And those same people who are purchasing can also be employed by those businesses. And so kind of thinking about the entire community and not just the transactional pieces of the interaction between businesses and the residents in the areas that they're serving. And then legislation at the state, municipal, and national level. All politics is local. That's another saying that some people will say. And it's important. It is so important for people to pay attention to the decisions that are being made in their community. Everything from taxes to schools to construction and projects that are allowed or not allowed. A lot of that happens at the local level, at the city council level, or at the school district level. And people are often not paying attention to city politics or town politics. They're usually only tangentially paying attention to the state level politics. And it's usually when it's an election year. And then a lot of what captures our attention on the media is national headlines.
Right.
All the while, things that are most directly impacting our daily life, those decisions are being made at the local level. So pay attention. You don't necessarily have to run for office, but at least know who's running for office and what they stand for. And when it comes time to vote for people who are there for your community, and vote out the folks who are making decisions that are counter to your community's needs.
Okay, sounds good. One other thing I just want to really bring it home, and we may not have a chance to really go through this until we're going to be taking a break soon, but I want to touch on this. You had mentioned legislation and, places where we can, encourage companies to bring their businesses that have healthy food into urban communities. But as much as we're able to do all those things, at the end of the day, it's an individual choice, right? And I think sometimes we in our community, I'm gonna get on us a little bit, but sometimes we don't know how to cook. Like we love fried everything. we a salad. Give me some fried chicken, or give me some chips and fries, and and I think about like the single mom or the single dad who's got two kids, has to work two jobs. And it's cheaper to go pick up a bucket of KFC with some wedges and some soda, forget the salad. I mean, this is easier. I don't have to cook. And nowadays, more and more families don't cook because we're so busy. So how do we counter that so that even though people may have the access where they live to healthier alternatives, but to teach and to promote healthy living and healthy eating, how do we juxtapose those two things so that way, it's one, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And sometimes there's a paradigm shift that needs to happen, that some families, based on necessity or time, just aren't able to make that switch. So what are some of the things that you would suggest to someone listening right now who is a single mother of two, or a working poor family that may not have the time or the access to healthier food, and they just need to eat because they got another shift to go? What would you recommend?
Yeah, well, it's such an important conversation to have, both at the individual level and also at the community level, because in many situations, especially when you think about what's accessible, the healthy option is not always the default option or easily accessible.
Right,
So
right.
recognizing that, we have to recognize what resources are accessible, what isn't. When we have access to adequate and affordable healthy foods, planning as much as is practical makes it easier. And if you're able to prepare food for 2 days or even for an entire day, as opposed to, kind of playing catch up from a food perspective, and you get to mealtime and then trying to figure out, what are we going to do for lunch? What are we going to do for dinner? In that time crunch and out of necessity of having to put food in mouth, then it becomes a much easier decision to say, all right, we're just going to pick up something from
Right.
down the street at McDonald's or Burger King or whatever. And that happens to not just low and moderate income households. That can happen to anyone. That's happened to me at times when, just in the crunch of trying to get from picking up the kids to in between activities and trying to put food in their mouth so they don't cause a riot later on in the night, I'll grab what's on the way. but being able to plan as much as is practical, learning how to prepare uh, easily prepared foods that are healthy, nutritious, learning what your kids like and others in your household like as a starting point, and then kind of building out and expanding their palate from there. And if they don't like broccoli, they don't like broccoli. Hopefully, they like green beans or okra or something else.
Mhm.
I know some old school Jamaican parents don't give you a choice, so
No, sir.
you know,
You must eat what's on your plate. No work hard.
you don't eat at
You're
all.
gonna eat this yam, or else we're gonna slap. No,
Yeah, that's frowned upon nowadays, but
no, we're not doing that. No, no. That you catch a case. Yeah.
yeah,
We're
no,
not we're not encouraging that, y'all. Happy
no,
Father's Day. Yeah,
no.
amen.
But meeting your kids where they are and understanding what they like, and then building out as complete a meal as possible. It's easy to build out a plate that's full of rice and protein, but no vegetables. So kind of maybe reduce the rice a little bit or the potatoes a little bit, and add some spinach or broccoli or green beans or something, and a protein, and then kind of round it out from there. And also know uh, what's relevant to your culture, and building on using that as a starting place as well. I think there's this notion that everyone's plate has to look the same and it has to be white rice plus this, no, or meat and steak and potatoes. No, know what's relevant to a Caribbean household or to an Asian household or to the Hispanic diaspora, and start there with the foods that are part of your culture's menu, and then grab a little bit of everything to round out a delicious and balanced and healthy plate. And then ideally that will help uh, for kids to introduce them to a broader variety of foods, and also help them to understand what a plate should look like. And that's something that hopefully they'll take with them over time when they start to prepare foods for themselves, or they're making decisions on the fly between activities. So those are some things that we can try to do, but it's not a one size fits all solution. And again, in so many situations, the healthy choice is not the default option. And so making sure that at a community level, that we're providing the resources for households and families to be able to make those choices, and then at the household level, building in the time, acquiring the skills, and enlisting help where necessary to prepare the foods. But I want to be careful of not putting the blame on individuals, because it's not often the individual's fault why things play out the way they are. The economy is the way it is, and that there's so many households that require 2 and 3 jobs to keep the lights on and to pay the bills. And so we can't say don't work multiple jobs so that you can take care
Right.
of things at home. That's where the economy is. So part of it is advocacy around a living wage, so that people don't have to work multiple jobs in order to make
Exactly.
ends meet, and then other things will fall into place as well.
And the other thing too, before we take this break, is that a lot of times people don't know what they don't know. I mean, a lot of times you're used to eating fried this. You're used to eating, yeah, I'll say it. You're used to eating pork, this, and everything on a pig. And then when you don't know that it's bad for you, you don't know that you can get your protein from other sources. You don't know that what you're eating tastes good, but there's absolutely no nutritional value. I mean, as of recently, I've been juicing more. You got some people that are hooked on Kool-Aid. I mean, there's nothing nutritious on a flavor that's called blue. Right? So, but you don't know what you don't know. Oh, we put lemon in it. Yeah, so it's healthy. No, it's still blue.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not blueberries. It's like the blue you see, like that looks like, my car. So it's a lot of times people just don't know. So as long as it's great to have these resources in communities, but I'm glad to hear that there is some education as well, where people learn to eat. Remember when we were in school, the 4 food groups. So we learn, and that's been tweaked over the many years. But the principle is that the people need know, and then they can make their own personal choice, right? So we're gonna go into a commercial right now. We'll take a 3-minute break, and then I'd like us to transition from the physical health and nutritional health to a very hot topic, and something that's needed is men's behavioral and mental health services. So we're going to take a break. We're going to play a little music for you, and then we'll be right back with Motivation Moments with Gregory Bloomfield with my special guest, Dr. Larry Warner.
Some people have seen where God has brought you from. They don't really understand it. They don't know your story.
You don't know my story. You don't know
The things.
You don't know the things that I've come through. You cannot imagine. Pain, the trials I've had to get. You don't know my story. You don't know the days.
I was at my lowest point.
You cannot imagine. The strongholds and the walls that stand. But God has been faithful to me. He promised he would never leave. My story proves that God can use me. Deliverance is my testimony. You don't know
My story.
It would blow your mind.
That's the key. They don't know.
My story.
Say it, LeJune.
You don't know my story. The anguish and the guilt that consume me. Grateful I can tell it. For no more shall the shackles condemn me. You don't know my story.
You just don't know.
For if you did, you would lift up your hands. So just let me tell you, by faith you may as well break out and dance.
I love this about God because even though I'm not perfect,
He would never leave. My story proves that God can do.
in my
And
deliverance,
deliverance
what I want to share is my testimony.
you don't know.
Somebody needs to know my story.
It would blow your mind.
Can I get a witness?
You don't know
My story.
my story. My story.
It is through my testimony that I overcome.
And the blood you shed delivered us.
I've been delivered. I've been set free. And now I have a testimony. God's favor. Oh, love. Oh, that's right. Say it, LeJune. God, you never leave me. Won't forsake me. My story. Listen, I want you to know that. Life and favor. Thank you for bringing me out. You think you know, but let me tell it. Life and favor. God, thank you for your mercy. And you love me. Life and favor. Oh, how wondrous. God is my story. Life and favor. You wouldn't believe my real testimony. Can't imagine. Some people, they walked out on me and they gave up on me, said I wouldn't make it, but God brought me out.
All the things I've done.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope you enjoyed that music from John P. Key, and I welcome back to Motivation Moments with Gregory Bloomfield with my special guest, Dr. Larry Warner. And you saw with the commercials that we are building a family of shows for your inspiration and something to bless you. So every Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, please join my good friend Lonnie B, Dr. Alana Kusamo, for our devotional thought. So it's just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a devotional nugget, an inspirational word to get you fired up for the day. So that's Mondays through Thursdays. On Fridays, she's joined with her husband, Manny, and they do a Bible study at the same time at 9 a.m. on Friday mornings. And then on Saturday at noon, we have our good friend Rosalind with her show Dear Life After. So that's every Saturday at noon. She has her show where she has inspiring guests. She has great conversations and something to bless you for the weekend. And of course, you got myself, yours truly, every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Motivation Moments. We have Larry Warner with us today. Next week's guest will be none other than Pastor and my good friend Nehemiah Johnson Jr. You may know him from When the Right One Comes. So we're going to have a great time. Please continue to support all of our programming here on YouTube and on Facebook. So let's get back into our conversation with Dr. Larry Warner. Now let's transition over to mental health and behavioral health. This is really your wheelhouse. And with the time we have left, I don't even know if we can really do justice to the conversation, but let's do our best. Here's my ultimate question is that why is it, in your opinion, that Black men, particularly since this is Father's Day, and particularly because this is Men's Health Awareness Month, why don't we go to the doctor? Why is it, and not even just physically doing our physical checkups and our annual exams, but why is it that we just don't want to deal with our mental health? And how can we change that to make therapy and access to mental health services for the African American male in the United States more accessible and change the stigma that's given to? Because I'm a huge advocate of mental health. I have a therapist. So how do we change that? And in your line of work, what type of education could we give to the Black community that therapy is needed and therapy is a good thing?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that and asking the question. And I think we definitely need to normalize the conversation around mental health in general in the Black community and communities of color, and amongst men more specifically. As you mentioned, as part of the theme of this month, it's just not something that we have been accustomed to talking about openly. And when we hear someone say, and kind of generically, I'm referring to, when we hear someone say that they went to the doctor or they went to see a psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, we automatically assume that something is wrong and that something's wrong with the person and that they're broken or somehow something is just, yeah. So we have a deep stigma to address with accessing mental health resources, health care, and should understand it. So, first of all, it's okay to not be okay. So, for whatever the reason, whatever the underlying reason is, whether you were brought up to have a mental health provider as part of your team of care, and that's great, or you had a life experience. There's a number of former first responders who've experienced PTSD, or members of the military, or people who go through family changes, and there are major life events or traumatic experiences that can trigger a need for mental health care. And unfortunately, we often don't seek care until it's too late, or we don't seek it at all. and it can result in everything from depression to, at the far end of the spectrum, suicide or
Right.
violence against someone else. And there's definitely interventions and therapy and conversations that can be had that can help people to address the underlying, the cause of their depression or other conditions that they're working through, if it's identified and if they're connected with a counselor or other provider. There is, on the other side of the coin, there is a gap in access, and there's not enough mental health clinicians or providers. We're seeing a lot of innovative ways to increase access that have been adopted, and it can look like everything from having a behavioral health provider be part of a primary care team. So when you go to have your regular checkup or seeing someone for diabetes management or hypertension management, you don't have to go to another office to see someone. So it's part of that team of care approach. And then there are, of course, individual practitioners that have their own practices, but there's not enough providers and there's not enough diversity amongst providers as well. So
Yeah.
one thing that we've seen in multiple settings, in health, physical health, behavioral health, and even outside of the health setting, it's recognized that in educational settings as well, that students, patients, whatever the context is, people in general connect better with a provider or an educator that looks like them or that they perceive may have an appreciation for their social context.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to open up and for the provider or the teacher to understand the context, be in addition to the person who's sitting in front of them, the community that they're coming from, the setting that may give rise to their ability to adopt some of the things that you're recommending. It could be that we're telling people to go for a 30-minute walk when the community that they're in doesn't lend itself to walking because it's dangerous or because it's not, there's not paved sidewalks. And so there's a whole host of reasons why things that are recommended may not be fully practical. So understanding that and then figuring out, well, what can we accomplish within the context of someone's setting? What can we recommend that will help them to be their whole self? And if it requires medication, it requires medication. If it requires counseling, it requires counseling. But we got to have the conversation, and we have to understand that it's okay to seek care when you need help. And
Right.
also, kind of going back to part of your question was, why don't we go to the doctor? I think there are valid reasons why some people are fearful of going to healthcare institutions, whether it's a doctor's office or a hospital, because they may have lost a loved one. So auntie so and so went to the hospital and we've never seen them again. Or if you look back in history, and actually not too far back in history, there is still discrimination that happens in healthcare settings. So people have a lack of trust in the health system. However, the large majority of providers have our best interests in mind, and they can only help us if we connect. So having routine checkups, at least your annual physical, so if you have how your blood pressure is doing, how your blood sugar is doing, how how your lungs are doing, all of these things, and how your mental health is doing as well. All of these things should be part of our routine engagement, our routine care. And then when something is identified that requires following up as much as is practical so that we can get the help we need and have the best possible chances for a healthy outcome.
I think as well, just to your point, I think Black men are the best promoters of Black men's stuff. Like, one of the things is that, I often say to other men that I minister to, as you know, when I was at Lincoln, I was the men's ministry director, and the church that I'm at now, I'm the men's ministry director there. And one of the things that I've always said is that men are the best promoters of men's stuff. And I am very open with people and talk about I had a therapist. I'm looking for a new one right now. And the analogy that I always give is when you take your car, most men love their car, they love their vehicles. When your car is not running right, when your vehicle needs an oil change or needs brakes, whatever, you don't throw away the car. You will gladly go and get maintenance because there clearly is something wrong. You hear it. It doesn't rev as quickly as it did before. It's a little sluggish. Everybody knows, even if you're not versed with cars, there's a big old light that you're looking at saying check oil, or check brakes. You feel it. If you're in tune with your vehicle, you know. So you get it maintained, right? It's the same thing with us. There are times where we need maintenance. And it's mental maintenance, it's emotional maintenance. We as Black men have gone through many traumas. I mean, whether it's, death of a friend, or whether it's, their childhood, or in my case, whether it's divorce or anything along those lines, it's a trauma, it's a shock to the system. And it's okay. I love what you said, and I'd love that comment to be shown on here. If there's one nugget I'd love to take, is it's okay to not be okay, right? A real man can say, I'm scared. I don't know what it is, but I don't know how to figure this out. It's okay to say, I don't know how to figure this out. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Or why you're feeling this way. I'm angry. I'm upset. I want to know how to treat women better. I want to be a better father. I want to be able to be more stable for my loved ones. It's okay to say that. So when men are in other spaces and communities, and I call it like a band of brothers, it makes it safe, and it normalizes the concept that you astutely said. It's okay not to be okay, right? But it's not okay to stay unwell when there's help out there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I love.
Yeah.
I love the car analogy. I know I'm trying to keep an eye on time, but I would build on the car analogy because it's one that's easily relatable. That there's scheduled maintenance. We're supposed to get an oil change every certain 1,000 miles. We're supposed to put certain types of fuel in the car. And sometimes even when you put the right fuel in the car and you do the oil changes, things don't work out perfectly. And so you get a check engine light comes on. If you ignore the check engine light, then you're going to have worse problems. And as men, we often ignore the check engine lights, and we don't do our scheduled maintenance with self-care. And so some of the things that we can do for self-care are creating breaks in the rat race of life. Taking some time to do some exercise, to sleep well so that our mind and our hearts can recharge. And so little things like that can help us to get the most life out of our body, out of the car analogy.
And the other thing too, Larry, with the time that we have left, this ties in so well to our diet. Because one of the reasons why, and I really believe this, I don't know if this is scientifically proven, but I just believe this from a spiritual standpoint. The whole phrase, you are what you eat. If you eat a lot of junk, right, you're going to have a junky mind. Your physical attributes will be junky. And I really believe nutrition is a very key component to mitigate a lot of the behavioral and mental health issues that we have. I said mitigate, not cure. So if we're eating a lot of processed foods, if we're eating a lot of meat, overindulging in meat, if we're not eating organic stuff, if we're not drinking water, if all we're drinking is Hennessy and liquor and juice and blue Kool-Aid, those things do affect you mentally and able to process problems. And sleep, you just mentioned, if you're eating all this white bread and all this stuff, it's going to affect you, man. I'm sorry for other people out there that like, their white bread and their pork and stuff, but I'm just telling the truth. I just want to let's, with the 2 minutes we have left, let's address Rosalind's question. How will we help men learn to know that self-care for them is important? Can we get a really Cliff Notes answer for Rosalind and her
Yeah,
question?
no, two things I would say is one, we need to keep talking about it. And the more we talk about the importance of men's mental health and mental health, of course, for the broader community, the more normal it will be to have these conversations. And when we talk about how prevalent depression is and how much there's an increase in death by suicide, people will realize, all right, this is a real issue. And if we it's not going to go away by us not talking about it. And then having space for conversation and respecting that we know, or my observation has been that we don't express ourselves the same way that women do. We're less open about our feelings. We're raised generally to think that men don't cry, and so we internalize a lot of things that are harmful because we don't have, or we don't, where we feel like we don't have license to express ourselves. And so, one, support emotional expression, create space where, whether it's men getting together to have conversations about life and to realize I'm not the only one that's going through this, or and this is how Gregory's dealing with it, or this is how Larry's dealing with this, then that helps to create a safe space. And then, again, normalizing the conversation around the importance of mental health. We could have had a whole other segment about substance use. That's a whole other thing, alcohol and opioids, and that's a whole other conversation to be had. But recognize that we do need to have these conversations because they are impacting our communities. And if we don't talk about it, the problem is not going to go away.
Yeah. And that's why I encourage the men who are listening, or the women who have men in their families, start with your church. Start to see if there's a men's group or a support group. Look in your community. There are other men who are going through your struggle. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And please, we also want to say, we talked about suicide. Please, there's help out there. I don't have the suicide hotline number in front of me, but I think it's 988 is a great free resource. Yes, it's very important. Please don't make permanent decisions for temporary problems, right? In perspective. And this is where we didn't get a chance to really talk about this in the detail we wanted to. Thank you, Janice. We didn't get into the detail of this, but one of the things is ultimately my faith in God, my faith in Jesus, and your faith in God is such I don't know where I'd be without my faith in God. So, I'd probably serve in 10 to 15 years in somebody's prison. I'd probably be drinking. I'd probably be, whatever. But I think ultimately our faith in God, and I can say this because we serve together in the same church, literally the same church.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jesus is awesome. So,
Yes,
but I want to say thank you, Dr. Larry Warner, my good friend, for being our guest tonight. And how can we reach you if we had any questions, we wanted some resources or anything along those lines? What's the best way to reach you so we can put it on the screen here?
I'll put my personal email in the chat, and it's I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with folks. I appreciate the opportunity to start the conversation. Hopefully it's not the last conversation about men's mental health, and appreciate the opportunity to be part of the show. And hope that if there are men, or as you said, others who have men in their lives who are listening, please make sure that that the men in your life know that there's a safe space for them to have conversations with others. Can reach out to 988 as a crisis hotline. Mental health clinicians can be reached 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nights, holidays. 988 is a great resource. And check on the men in your life.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for being with us. And please, everyone, swarm his email address with questions. He will answer them. He's a brother who's at Brown University, Ivy League, and a real humble gentleman. And I've known him for years. He's a good brother. So thank you once again for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Gregory.
All right. Thank you. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you so much for being with us tonight here on Motivation Moments with Gregory Bloomfield will be back again this coming Sunday or next Sunday at 8 p.m., where we're going to have another great conversation on the theme of manhood and fatherhood. Please support the other shows that I'd mentioned earlier, Monday through Thursday. Lonnie B with their devotion, Manny and Alonda for the Bible study, Saturday with Rosalind with Dear Life After, and yours truly Sunday nights at 8 p.m. With Motivation Moments, where our next week's guest will be my good friend Nehemiah Johnson. Get the bundle of the 522 Man, get the paperback and 2 ebooks for $30, and go to my website and check out all the products that are on there. Until then, be encouraged, be inspired, and most importantly, be motivated. God bless you all. Have a wonderful week. Happy Father's Day and happy Juneteenth. Thank you.
Oh,